Good morning. Welcome back to the Planet Doug podcast for Saturday, December 28th, 2024. Getting towards the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, which I guess is kind of exciting. And it's about 10:30 in the morning here. Enjoying my second cup of coffee of the morning. Yeah, a few things on my mind this morning. As always, the very first thing is generally technology, because the first thing I do is get on my laptop, do some things, set up the GoPro, microphones, things like that. So I'm thinking about technology right away. And continuing to have adventures with my new laptop. That's the Asus TUF A16 laptop. Amazing machine, really enjoying having it. But I'm still having trouble with one of the USB-C ports. It has two USB-C ports. One of them is a USB 4, and the other one is a USB 3.2. And for some reason, the 3.2 port often doesn't work. I should say most of the time it doesn't work. So I use an external SSD drive for storage, and I use a memory card reader with a USB-C plug on it. So what I often want to do is plug in the SSD drive, take the memory card out of my GoPro, plug it into the memory card reader, plug it into the other port, and copy from one to the other. But I can't do that most of the time because the 3.2 USB-C port just won't work. Whatever I plug into it, it won't read it. And then when I go into the device manager, I see that one of the USB-C drivers or whatever it is, it's some kind of a system file. It has a triangle on it with an exclamation mark saying that there's something wrong. But I don't know whether it's something physically wrong with the hardware or something wrong with the software. Because what I normally do now is I uninstall that file. If it's a driver, again, I don't know what it is, I uninstall it. I found these instructions online. And then I reboot the computer. And then when I check the warning, the error message, the triangle with the exclamation mark has disappeared. And then it will work. But then the next time I start the laptop, it won't work again. So I have to reinstall the driver every time in order for it to work. So that tells me it's probably not a hardware problem, right? It's something to do with the software. But I've done everything I can think of. I can't think of anything else to do. Right now, I'm just living with it the way it is. And the other thing I learned is that your power source has a lot to do with how the laptop operates. Because a couple of episodes ago in this podcast, I think I was talking about the possibility of getting a USB-C power source, because you can power this laptop through the USB-C port, the 3.2 port, which means you can get a very lightweight, a much smaller and lighter power brick, because the one that came with this laptop is very big and heavy. And I thought, I can save a couple of pounds by buying a USB-C power source. But I was wondering, I assume there's some sort of a disadvantage to doing that. And one disadvantage is that I think the USB-C can get quite hot. It really heats up, depending on the quality of the one that you get. And I did discover just recently that power also affects the speed at which the laptop can operate because of the discrete GPU that it has. So I was exporting a video the other day, and I've been talking a lot about how incredibly fast this laptop is when it comes to exporting. It's unbelievably fast. It does everything so fast. And I've gotten used to how it looks when it's exporting and how quickly it happens. But then this time it was going really, really fast, much faster than anything I've ever owned. but it wasn't as fast as I was accustomed to. I was looking at it going, okay, it's exporting the video pretty quickly, but it isn't going at Superman speeds that I'd become accustomed to. So I thought, that's kind of disappointing. I wonder why it's slowing down. And I thought, okay, maybe it was so fast originally because it was a brand new laptop, and now the system is starting to get clogged up, and it's going to slow down and slow down and slow down. And I thought, that's kind of disappointing. But then the next day or yesterday, I exported another video, and it was incredibly fast, just like 2 Supermen fast. It was so fast. And I realized that when I did it before, I didn't have it plugged in. I was running off of the battery inside the laptop. But when I plugged in the external power brick, then it kicked into high gear. So I think what happens is that it has a power monitoring system built into the laptop. And when you have it running on battery alone, it doesn't use the full power of the GPU because it doesn't have enough power to run it. So you have to plug in the external power brick. Then you get full power from the GPU, from the CPU, from everything in the laptop. So that makes me think that, okay, buying a USB-C power source could have some disadvantages, and one of them might be that you never actually get to use the full power of the GPU. So it's like, okay, now that makes sense to me. So then that's a reason why you need the full original power brick, because it can power this laptop, whereas a simple USB-C charger won't be able to fully power the whole system. So that was something else I learned in terms of the technology. Last technology note is that because I've gotten accustomed to this supercharged, super powerful laptop, I finally changed the setting on the GoPro to 4K. So now the GoPro is recording 4K video, and I'm curious to see what that means in terms of how fast it exports, how fast it edits, and how big the file is. Like when I export the video file, how big is it? Because I don't understand why this should be the case, but ever since I got this new laptop, the final video exports are so much smaller. Yesterday, I exported a 2-hour video. It was 1080p, but it was a 2-hour video, and the final video was less than 2 gigabytes. And on my MacBook, all the exact same settings, when I exported that, if I exported a 2-hour video, it'd be something like 60 gigabytes for a 1080p video. For a 4K video, it'd be like 90 gigabytes. The files were huge, but off of this laptop, they're like 1 to 2 gigabytes in size, which means they upload in like 5 minutes. So the advantages since I got this laptop are unbelievable. But I don't know why the video file sizes are so much smaller. But now, since I'm recording this in 4K, I'm curious to see how big the final export is or how small it is. Just a couple of local random stories. One is that when I'm watching YouTube videos, I'm always curious when I see the advertisements that I get. For 2 reasons. One is you might be in a new country, so it's interesting to see what advertisements you get in that new country. But the other thing that's interesting to me is there's all this concern in the world about browsers and websites tracking you, that the internet is tracking everything you do and learning everything about you and then selling this data to large corporations. And everybody is worried about privacy and security and things like that. But really, what really jumps out at me is, if this is true, then the internet is really stupid, because I continue to get ads that have nothing to do with me. None of my interests, none of my web surfing habits. I mean, it's not hard to figure out the things I'm interested in life, the things that I might purchase, right? It's not hard to figure out I'm interested in anything to do with with cameras, GoPros, camera gear, grips, mounting equipment, wireless microphones, USB-C cables, laptops, anything to do with technology of any kind. That's what I'm interested in. Laptop, like a computer mouse, keyboards, on and on and on. Smartphones, memory card readers, memory cards. These are the things that I'm searching for online all the time. And yet, I never get an advertisement for any of those things. Like travel gear, backpacks, knapsacks. I can go on and on and on, all the items that I might do an internet search for. I never get an advertisement for any of these things. Instead, here in Indonesia, I'm flooded with ads, in particular for Head & Shoulders shampoo. I get tons of them. I guess dandruff is a big problem in Indonesia, or they think I am concerned about dandruff. Why they think that, I have no idea. I don't have dandruff. I'm not worried about shampoo in any way. These days, the only shampoo I use is the little packages that you get when you stay in a hotel. Like, they give you these little packages. And what I do is I open up those packages, and then I squeeze them out into this little bottle that I have, like a 4, 5, or 6 ounce bottle. And then I put in like one package of shampoo, and then I fill the rest of the bottle with water, and then I shake it up, which really dilutes the shampoo, because I find like pure shampoo, I don't need that much soap. So I dilute it with water, and then I squirt the water out into my hand, and works absolutely fine. So I have zero interest in any kind of shampoo, let alone Head & Shoulders dandruff shampoo, but I get tons of ads for that. I get tons of ads for all kinds of cosmetics, like women's cosmetics. I don't like body wash and things like that. I don't know why I get those ads, because there's no makeup on this face. Why they're trying to sell me makeup, I have no idea. Body wash, things like that. And I get tons of ads for instant noodles, which I never have. So why they tell me about instant noodles all the time? I never search for anything about instant noodles. And I get ads all the time for mobile games. I guess that's mainly if I'm watching a YouTube video on my phone. Pretty much the only ad I get is for mobile internet games. And I don't understand that one either, because as I've talked about before, I've never played a computer game in my life. I've never played an online mobile internet game. I don't know anything about them. I have zero interest in anything to do with computer games. So, yeah, those are the only ads I get, which I find kind of weird, that the internet doesn't really know anything about me. And there was a big local story, I think it went international, about the concert in Jakarta maybe a few weeks ago or a month ago. I didn't do a deep dive into the topic, so I don't know a lot of the specific details, but there was a big warehouse techno dance party in Jakarta, and I guess it's an annual event, and a lot of people fly into Indonesia from Malaysia and from around the world to attend this big techno dance party. And it's been happening every year for a few years now. And I guess this year, a lot of Malaysians in particular were pulled out of the party, out of the dance concert, by Indonesian plainclothes police officers, and then they were taken out. Their passport was taken away from them, and then they were given some kind of a drug test. And then, according to all the articles that I saw online, the police demanded money in order to let them go. I like these articles, these stories. I find them very, very frustrating, because I want the specifics, I want the details of exactly what happened, but the articles never contain any specifics. But according to what the Malaysians are saying, that the police extorted money from them and basically threatened them with jail, saying, oh, we found drugs in your urine test, or whatever drug test they gave them, and we are going to arrest you and put you in jail. And of course, Indonesia is famous for how severe their drug laws are. So if you just flew into Indonesia to attend this party and then you're flying out the next day or something, this would be terrifying to you. This would be terrifying to any foreigner coming into Indonesia. So all these Malaysians handed over a lot of money. I saw numbers online like as high as like $20,000 US, like thousands of US dollars. They were forced to go to the ATM, withdraw all this money, and give it to the police, and then they got their passport back, and then they were released. So, of course, not surprisingly, because of the scale of the operation, they were caught. All the Malaysians who went back home to Malaysia, they went onto social media. Maybe they went to mainstream media to tell their story, I don't know. So the internet was flooded with stories from the people from Malaysia who had been extorted by Indonesian police. And then there was an investigation in Indonesia, and according to the articles I read, a bunch of them, like a lot of them, were arrested, these police officers. But beyond that point, I don't know. I don't know whether these officers are facing any kind of punishment. Are they going to be fired? Are they going to be charged with anything? Are they going to be put in jail? Is anything going to happen to them beyond a reprimand? And if you're very cynical, and you watch a lot of YouTube videos, you just assume that any police officer, anywhere in the world, if they get caught doing something bad, well, they get suspended with pay for 1 week. So they basically get a 1 week holiday, and then they're back on the force again. That seems to happen a lot because the police investigate the police, and then they just give them a paid holiday, and then they come right back to work again. But who knows what's going to happen here in Indonesia. And I'm also interested in what happens to the money, because they were talking about very large amounts of money. I saw the articles that I read were all over the place in terms of the numbers. So it's really hard to figure out what the truth is. Some of them were saying that the police, the corrupt police, they extorted like $2 million US dollars. Others said it was like 250,000 US dollars in total. So nobody really knows how much money was recovered, because after a police officer gets $20,000 or $2,000, whatever it is, from a foreign tourist, where does that money go? Like, were all these police officers working together and they put all the money into a big pool and they divided it up evenly? Or did each police officer just pocket whatever money they could get? Like, how was this organized? I'd love to hear all the behind-the-scenes stories, to really know exactly how it was organized, how they did it, what happened to the money, how they were investigated. But of course, we'll never ever know. We get the headlines at the beginning, and then we'll never hear anything else about this story ever again. which I always find very frustrating. But I'm curious whether the Malaysians, will they get anything back? Will they ever get like compensated by the Indonesian authorities? How would they do it? There's no paper trail, I assume. So how will they ever figure out, well, you lost $2,000, you lost $500, you lost $15,000, and then so they give them each their money back based on how much they gave the corrupt police. I mean, how can they possibly ever come up with these numbers? So, I mean, I have to assume that the Malaysians who were the victims of this extortion ring, they're basically out of luck. They're never going to get their money back. But anyway, that is a local story that I was following. People in the comments on my YouTube channel, they know I'm in Indonesia, so they told me about the story, and then I tracked down all the information, and that was quite interesting. The other stories I keep hearing about here in Indonesia, in particular, all come from Bali. And I guess that's probably because I do express some interest in this topic. I'm doing searches. Well, I'm not really doing searches, but every time an article appears, like in my Google News feed about tourism in Indonesia, I click on it. So Google is feeding me more and more of these stories. And the most interesting one for me is the tourism tax in Bali. And I'm quite interested in tourism taxes because of my negative experience with the tourism tax in Malaysia. And then that got me investigating tourism taxes in countries around the world. How high or how low are they? How do they implement them? And this new tourism tax in Indonesia has got to be the worst implemented system I've come across. I mean, I think the one in Malaysia is pretty bad, the way they do it, the way they set it up. But the one in Bali is really even worse. So the tax itself is 150,000 rupiah, which is about $10 US, 41 Malaysian ringgit. So it's not a small amount of money. And it's not a small amount either because you've already paid for everything. You're going to Bali on a holiday. You've had to pay for the visa. You had to pay for your flight. You're paying for your hotel, transportation, on. And then now you've got this tourism tax as on top of all of that. And I'm sure there are all kinds of other fees that you had to pay along the way. And currently in Indonesia, before you come to Indonesia, you've got to go online. You can get your tourist visa online. Then you have to fill out the health declaration online. Then you have to fill out the customs declaration online. And the Indonesian authorities, they set up this tourism tax. It's only for Bali. It's not for Indonesia. It's only for the island of Bali. You also have to go to a separate website to pay the tax. And that raises the question, how is anybody going to know about it? It's a brand new thing. And you, as the tourist, you have to do it. It's not automatic. You have to know about it. You have to find the website. Then you have to pay for it online, download the QR code to your phone to show that you paid. So you have to do it yourself. And if you don't do it online, before you come to Indonesia, apparently they have a desk at the airport in Bali. I haven't been to Bali for decades, so I don't know what it's like there now, but it's pretty crowded. It's the most popular place in Indonesia, and the airport is very crowded. A lot of people, they get there, they have to line up for immigration, they got to line up to get their luggage, they have to line up to get their visa on arrival, on, and now you've got to line up for show your health declaration scan, your customs declaration scan, and now, in the middle of that chaos, apparently there's one desk hidden somewhere where now you have to go and pay 150,000 rupiah for the tourism tax. And then you get a QR code. And of course, in order to get the QR code, I assume you have to register online. You've got to give them your email address. You got to fill things out, and then they send you the email that gives you the QR code. Without an email address, how would you get it? So you can imagine how long it takes to do that if there are hundreds of people in the airport all trying to do it. And I guess most visitors to Bali don't know about it. So they just fly into Bali and they've never heard of the tourism tax. And then there are a bunch of people who might know about it, but they're just not going to bother doing it. So according to the numbers I've seen, right now, 40% of the people who go to Bali pay the tax. 60% don't. And then what percentage of that 60% just didn't even know about it, and what percentage knew about it and just didn't want to pay it, or just thought it was too much trouble? Like, nobody knows the answer to those numbers. But this has been going on for a long time. And then you constantly see news articles from Bali, the local authorities trying to enforce the new tourism tax. So they developed this system now where they have tourist police who go roaming around Bali. They go to all the big tourist sites. And then when they go to the tourist sites, they spot check. They stop foreigners on the street, or they're standing in line to buy the ticket to go in somewhere, or they're down at the beaches enjoying themselves surfing, whatever it is people do in Bali these days. And then now these tourist police are spot checking. They're basically going up to random tourists and checking their papers and saying, oh, have you paid the tourist tax? Show us your QR code. And then the foreigner has to open up their phone, show them the QR code. And then if they haven't paid, then I guess, I don't know what happens to them. But maybe they can do it on the spot. Maybe the police have some sort of a scanner system where you can pay the police and you can register and do all this. So they have this going on. So now every tourist on Bali is living in fear of being caught by the tourist police, which is not the message. It's not really the atmosphere you want to create on your tourist island. And now the most recent articles that I saw, the authorities are getting really frustrated that still 60% of visitors are not paying the tax. So now they are introducing new policies where if you haven't paid your tax, you're going to be fined. And the fine is going to be 10 times the tourism tax. So it's going to be 1.5 million rupiah in fines and up to 1 week in jail. That's the proposal that is going through the local authorities on Bali right now, that they're going to put in place jail time for not paying the tax. Which seems absolutely insane to me, and yet it seems to fit in with the mood in Indonesia these days. They just seem to have this really strange attitude towards foreigners coming into the country. There's like you see it in Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia. There does seem to be a trend towards making it easier for foreign tourists, wealthy foreign tourists in particular, to come into the country. And there's a competition amongst all these countries because they're trying to attract Chinese tourists, like the big group tours from China in particular, because during the pandemic, of course, everybody lost money, and now they're all competing for the tourist dollar, making it easier. And Indonesia stands out as the one country that seems to be making it more and more and more difficult in terms of, I've talked about how registering your phone with customs, now the tourism tax on Bali, having a 30-day visa, and then now when you try to extend your 30-day visa, it gets delayed by many, many days or even weeks, because now they have to investigate, an immigration officer has to look at every application and investigate it before they approve it. So, yeah, Indonesia just seems to be making life more difficult for foreign visitors and more difficult for foreign companies, which is very different from the atmosphere in all the other like surrounding countries, which is kind of interesting. Other local stories, because of this time of year and because it's 2024, this is exactly 20 years. This year is the 20-year anniversary of the Boxing Day tsunami that hit Sumatra back in 2004. So it happened on Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, 2004. That's when the earthquake happened and the huge tsunami hit the coast of Sumatra. Banda Aceh was famously almost flattened by that tsunami. I forget the exact death toll, but I think something like 200,000 people died in Sumatra during that tsunami, which is a huge number. Let me double check that figure. So there are a lot of estimates online, but the estimates go from 130,000 up to 200,000 and above 200,000 people. So anyway, a lot of people died, and a lot of cities were badly hit that nobody really knows about or talks about. And everybody talks about Banda Aceh, because that always comes up. But I remember on another trip to Sumatra, I did a cycling trip here. I rode my bike along the coast, along the west coast of Sumatra, sort of the southwest coast. There's a city there, for example, called Mulabo. And I rode my bike through Mulabo and places like Padang and Chalang and all these places right along the coast. And they were actually in the direct line of the tsunami. And they were even more damaged than Banda Aceh was. But a lot of people don't know their story because they were smaller places and didn't get a lot of publicity. But yeah, in a place like, I think Mulabo was like flattened by the tsunami. And I remember learning all about that when I rode my bike there. But because this is the 20th anniversary, I found that YouTube and the internet in general was flooded with stories going back and talking about the tsunami and memorials. There were memorial services in Banda Aceh and all the cities that were badly affected. And I've always had a strong interest in it for some reason. I think I talked about this before, that there was the tsunami in Japan, of course, in 2011. And that tsunami made a big impression on me because I had an office job at that time. I was working as an English editor for a company in Taipei. And then when the tsunami hit Japan, I was sitting at my desk working, and I had a computer. Of course, my work involved a lot of being on the internet and doing research and writing articles and English grammar and English editing and things like that. So I was on the internet a lot, and I suddenly saw all these stories about the tsunami hitting the coast of Japan. So from that day, for the next month, I was consuming stories and videos in particular about the tsunami that hit Japan. And I just found them fascinating for some reason. The one thing I noticed is that there was a big difference in terms of how much video was captured, because we're talking about, say, Banda Aceh in 2004 and Japan in 2011. The number of smartphones, I think, exploded in that time. So many more people in Japan were taking video with their phones as the tsunami hit their cities. And some people did in Banda Aceh, but not very many. And again, there's a wealth difference too. More people in Japan had access to high quality smartphones with video cameras, and they had, people were still using like digital SLRs, and they were using their cameras to film the tsunami. So out of Japan, you got a huge amount of high quality video, and watching that tsunami decimate these cities, to me, was astonishing. And I watched it almost nonstop. I was just obsessed with it. And then of course that led me back to the 2004 tsunami, which I was also aware, because I was aware of it when it happened, but I wasn't as much online back in 2004 as I was in 2011. So I knew of it as a big, big story, but I wasn't as involved, I wasn't as engaged as I was with the Japan one. But after the tsunami in Japan, then I went back in time, and then on YouTube, track down as many videos as I could of the Boxing Day tsunami here in Sumatra. And I think I was also really interested in it because I have this fascination with the difference between what we believe and what is true, particularly because I consume so much media, movies and TV shows. And of course, if you watch a lot of movies, you have seen tsunamis, right? They get shown in disaster movies all the time, superhero movies all the time. And then when a tsunami in a movie hits a city, it comes as a giant wave, like a wave that's 300 feet tall. And then when it hits the shore, this huge 300-foot wave just wipes out everything ahead of it. And so we think we know what a tsunami looks like, but that's not what a tsunami looks like at all. And I guess people who study tsunamis would know this, but the average person wouldn't. But then when you watch all the videos from Japan and from Banda Aceh, and you see in reality what a tsunami actually looks like, I find it fascinating, because it isn't like when it hits the shore, it's not like a giant dramatic event. It's something that almost sneaks up on you, because there's also been a lot of documentaries, and I guess I'm talking about it because there was a brand new documentary series that was just released that I've been watching called, let me look it up real quick. I think it was called Tsunami, the Race Against Time, or something like that. I've got it here. And it focuses on the, where is it? It focuses on Sumatra. It's all about, tsunami race against time. And there's 4 episodes to this documentary. And the documentary is fascinating for me because a film crew, like it's a European film crew, they came to Sumatra and they tried to find new footage. So they went and interviewed people who lived through the tsunami, and while they were doing that, they found video that had never been released, that had never been posted online. So I got to watch all kinds of new video, which was amazing to watch. I saw all kinds of new elements to that tsunami that I'd never seen before. But anyway, watching that documentary, other documentaries, you learn things. So for example, you get an earthquake out in the ocean, and you get this massive shock wave going through the water. And then as it travels, it starts to separate. So you don't get one big wave, you get a series of waves. So the tsunami arrives in stages, which I wasn't aware of. And you see that in Japan, and you see that in Sumatra. Plus, of course, you get the whole thing where before the initial tsunami arrives, the water recedes because when the earthquake strikes and the tsunami is traveling, the ocean has raised up and has sucked the water away from the shore. So you get all these people. You see in all these videos in Thailand in particular, all the tourist beaches. That's where most of the video comes from. And everybody was down at the beaches enjoying themselves because it's mid-morning on Boxing Day, beautiful sunny day. Everybody's on holiday. They're all down at the beach. And then everybody's like, hey, look at that. The water is being sucked out into the ocean. And then all this land that you usually don't see, it's like the tide has gone out. And then everybody goes down to the beach to look at it. It's like, look at that. Isn't that weird? And people are walking out into the ocean because the water is gone, and they can walk out on the sand and on these muddy flats, and they're looking at starfish. But now, of course, we know, based on all this video, that if you ever see the ocean get sucked out away from you, run. Like, get out of there, because that's a sign that a tsunami is coming in. And I experienced that myself, again, which feeds into my own personal interest in this topic, because 2011, I was still in Taiwan, but shortly after that, I left Taiwan, and the first country I went to was the Philippines, and of course, I happened to be in the city of Tacloban, and in Tacloban, there was that huge typhoon, and during that typhoon, the storm surge hit Tacloban, and for all of it intents and purposes, a storm surge is pretty much the same thing as a tsunami. So this storm surge hit Tacloban when I was there, hit my hotel. It happened sort of like early in the morning, and I wasn't really aware of it because I was right in the middle of it. So I didn't have the bird's eye view of what was going on, and it took me weeks and even months to learn about everything that happened. But so I basically lived through my own personal tsunami, and I talked to lots and lots of people about their experiences, and people did tell me that they were down where the storm surge hit, and they saw the water get sucked out into the ocean. And then the bottom of the ocean near Tacloban was now visible. They saw all this land that they never saw before because all the water was sucked out, and then it all came back in again. And then, of course, as the first wave hits, it's not really even a wave. All it is the water rising. And as the water level is rising, it starts flowing inland. And then when the next one comes in, it suddenly starts picking up speed, and then before you know it, you've got a flood. Like, in my mind, it doesn't look like a wave at all. It looks like a flood of water just flowing across the land. So the Hollywood depiction of a tsunami is completely wrong. It just doesn't look like that at all. Like, in my mind, the way I think of it now is if, say, you had a huge platter, like a flat plate, and then you put a cup of water onto it, and then you just sort of tip it, and then that water just sort of flows over the other side of the plate. That's what a tsunami looks like. It looks like almost, if you have to don't think of it as a human scale, like a 4-foot wave coming in, cresting and falling over. Think about that entire coastline, and then all of the land for hundreds of miles kind of like tilted, and then the water just sloshed. It just sloshes over the land. Quick technology note, there's a little bit of a jump there. I got cut off because the GoPro shut down, which is interesting because I am shooting in 4K, and I was thinking as an experiment, shoot in 4K, see how my laptop handles it, but there's also the question of how the GoPro handles it, and it did pretty well. I was talking here for 46 minutes straight inside a room, and it's not really that cool in here. I have an air conditioner running, but It doesn't really work that well, so it's pretty hot in here. But my GoPro managed to run for 46 minutes at 4K, but that's shooting at 25 frames per second. And as I learned in all my experimentation when I was in Port Dickson, that's the key. If you want to run your GoPro in 4K, you have to drop the frame rate, because at that time I was shooting in 60 frames per second. And that meant the GoPro overheated all the time when I was in Vietnam. And I fixed that problem basically by learning, yeah, you can't film in 60 frames per second all the time. You got to drop it down to 25 or 30, which is the normal frame rate anyway. I was only shooting in 60 because, I don't know, I guess I always have this attitude that more is better. People said that the video looks better when you film in 60 frames per second. So I'm thinking, well, my GoPro can do 60 frames per second, so let's set it to 60. And I just did that without really even thinking about it. I never use slow motion. So the real reason you would use 60 frames per second is because you want to slow the video down, get some slow motion, but I never do that anyway, so 60 is of no use to me. But I just did it anyway. And it turns out that's why my GoPro overheated so much when I was in Vietnam. But anyway, here it overheated after 45 minutes. And I don't know how long it's going to last here, because I thought maybe the battery ran out. So I just put in a new battery and I just fired up the GoPro right away. And then I got the message saying, oh, no, your GoPro shut down because it got too hot. So, yeah, it may shut down again very, very quickly. Anyway, I got to the key point in my tsunami story, and that is the word slosh. Like, you know how things slosh? Like you've got a bowl of cereal with milk, or you've got a bowl of soup, and you kind of tip the bowl, and then it sloshes. That's what a tsunami is. It isn't a wave. You don't see a wave going across your bowl of soup, and then, you know, that's whoosh, wiping things out. No, it's like you tip the bowl, and then the level rises on one side, and then it sloshes over the edge, and then it flows. And that is exactly what a tsunami is. But again, when you watch these videos, though, you think, oh, okay, so it's really just water flooding in. How destructive can that be? But that's, again, gets into the whole science side of it and the physics side of it. And I think most of us don't really understand the force of water. I mean, we know water is heavy. If you've ever had like a 10-gallon bucket and you try to lift it, it's like, ooh, man, water is heavy. Or even me, I put 5 liters of water on my bicycle. It's like, oh man, that's heavy, you know? But the volume of water that comes in during a tsunami, our brains can't even scale up to that. And when that amount of water hits a house, right, we think of a house as being a pretty sturdy construction, nailed together, and we've got cement, and we've got bricks, and we've got mortar. But if you've got a solid flood of water hitting it, it just rips it right off its foundations and then just destroys it. Yeah, the force of flowing water is really something to behold. And there was one particular sequence of video in the documentary. I've only watched part 1 so far, this tsunami race against time, 4 episodes. I've only watched episode 1 because, to be honest, I did find it a bit slow. I was watching it because I wanted to see new footage. I wanted drama. But the documentary was more about the stories of the survivors. So there was a lot of talking head and talking about how they felt at the time. And I don't know, I got a little bit bored with that. I mean, I do want to hear their stories, but I want to hear their stories about the actual moment of the tsunami arriving. And I want precise physical details. My brain is so detail-oriented, that's all I care about. And they were just talking about how they felt and the emotions and the trauma. And I don't know. I wasn't as engaged by that. So I only made it through 1 episode so far. But they did include some new footage that I'd never seen before. In particular, that when the tsunami hits the shore, it wipes out all the buildings in its path, and then all that debris fills the water. So what you don't actually see water flowing down the street. It's like this giant slush of wood and cars and debris flowing along. It's really amazing to see. And you saw all these people who were on top of the debris. Like it'd be like a huge field of wood, like houses that have been smashed, and all the wood is floating on top of the water. And all these Indonesians in Banda Aceh were on top of the wood, floating down the river. And when I saw them, I thought, oh, they're safe. These people they're kind of lucky that they're able to ride on top of the water. But what I didn't realize is that the water had risen to the level of the bridges. And then when all this debris hit the bridges, then it just turned into a churn. All this wood was flipping end over end over end, and there's vehicles mixed in there, all this metal, everything that's in there, and all these poor people they thought they were safe because they're floating on top. Now they just get flipped over end to end and just get slammed under the water. And I guess a lot of those people then drowned because of this churning that happened when the debris hits the bridges. And I was like, I never thought of that before. I'd never seen any video of that before. And you saw some of these people trying desperately to get to shore because the debris, they could see they're heading for the bridge, and they're trying to jump. And they're trying to jump so that they can jump onto the bridge and climb onto the bridge rather than being sucked under the water. But yeah, the crazy, crazy story, which I'd never seen before. Yeah, the weird thing about Japan, all the videos from Japan, is there's so much video. I find more and more and more of it gets posted online all the time. And I keep seeing new stuff. And some of these videos are like 15 minutes long that show the entire sequence of events of the water being pulled out, and then the first flood coming in, and then the second, and then you suddenly see the big surge and wiping out all the buildings. You see this long form, and then occasionally you see people, like way off in the distance. You watching the video, you know what's coming, and you know this happened nearly 15 years ago, but you want to scream at the video at these people, like, run, get out of there. And you see people driving by on motorcycles or in vans or cars, and you know the tsunami is coming in, but you see these people just sort of walking around, and then they drive by in a van, they're following the coast. And there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency that these people don't know what's coming. But then when the tsunami flood sloshes over the shore, you don't really see any people anymore. Like in all the videos from Japan, I see the flood coming in, I see it flowing across the land, destroying everything in its path. But no matter how, like I put the resolution of the video as high as I can, 4K, 1080p, whatever the highest resolution is. And I'm looking really carefully everywhere, but I never see any people. And I keep wondering, well, that's a good thing, obviously, because all these people got out of the way. They all got to higher ground. Or, I don't know, it just seems like there should be more people in the video. Like, say, you see a lot of houses, a lot of buildings, and you'd think you'd see all these people like running into the houses, climbing onto the roof. You think you'd see people on the roof. You think you'd see a scattering of people either escaping from the tsunami or getting caught by it. But you almost never do. You just don't see any people in any of the video. And that always kind of intrigues me. Like, where are all the people? And are there people in those houses, in those buildings, inside the vehicles? But you just don't see them at all. Yeah, very, very interesting. And this is also on my mind because I watched a movie. Oh boy, now I have to look up the name of this movie. I'll be back in 1 second. I found the movie. It's called La Palma. And La Palma is the name of an island in the Canary Islands. I think it technically belongs to Spain. I think it's a Spanish movie. I watched it, again, because I'm interested in disaster movies, particularly ones that have a tsunami. Because La Palma, it's a TV show, not a movie, a Netflix series, that's right. And there's a volcano on the island, and then the volcano erupts, and then half of the mountain breaks off, falls into the ocean, and creates this tsunami. And of course, the TV series follows stories of all the people. There's a bunch of tourists on the island. There's a bunch of people who study tsunamis and volcanoes, and they're on the island as well, and just follows these people. And it's not a series that I recommend. It is, I mean, it's enjoyable if you don't really want to think that much. I found the characters somewhat compelling. It's like one of those TV series that it bills itself as a disaster story, but of course, you can't fill up 10 episodes of a TV show with nothing but disaster. You have to tell the stories about the people involved. And then they kind of go over a little bit overboard because every character has to have a backstory that makes them very traumatic. So they have to have all kinds of problems and mental issues and family issues. And these people are about to get a divorce, and these people have like their children have mental difficulties. Other people are survivors of the 2004 tsunami, like two of the people in the movie, a brother and sister. They're on La Palma. They're about to live through a tsunami, and yet they were in the 2004 tsunami, and their parents were killed during the 2004 tsunami. So they have all this psychological problems and trauma related to living through. They lived through a tsunami that wiped out their family, and here they are in their own tsunami. So, you get a lot of this building up of family drama and stuff like that. It can get a little bit much after a while, but I didn't find it was that bad. I kind of enjoyed it, to be honest. I enjoyed the characters. I liked their backstories. But where this series fell apart for me was the actual depiction of everything. Because, I mean, I can only imagine what scientists were thinking if they watched this show, because everything in it was wrong in terms of what a tsunami is like. And it's basically a Hollywood depiction of a tsunami. And it was absolutely ridiculous. All the way to the point of the number of people that survived. They billed this tsunami as the biggest in all of history, the biggest natural disaster in all of human history. And yet, so many people survived in ridiculous ways. There was even two of our main characters. To be honest, I was watching the show, and then two of our main characters escaped to another island, and then they're in a plane, like a big jumbo jet, and the jumbo jet is on the runway, about to take off, and you can see the tsunami, a Hollywood tsunami, like a huge wave rushing towards the island. It's not like a storm, it's not like there's sloshing or a flood, it's a huge wave rushing towards it. And then you're wondering about the pilot, because as you're watching the show, this plane just sits on the runway and sits there and sits there and sits there, and you're like screaming at the screen, go, like get in the air. And they're building the tension and they're building the tension. And you're thinking
they're doing it on purpose, and at the last minute, the pilot is finally going to hit the throttle, and they're going to go down the runway, and you're going to see the tsunami right behind the plane, and just as the plane takes off, the tsunami is going to crash, and they're just going to make it. That's what you think is going to happen, but for some reason, the pilot never hits the throttle, and the plane is standing sideways to the tsunami, and then the tsunami actually hits the plane while it's still on the ground. It's not even moving, and just decimates. And you can see, they show in the TV series, the tsunami water bursts the window of the big jumbo jet, fills the inside with water, and then the plane kind of goes tumbling end over end or something. And I was really impressed with that, because I thought, wow, they killed all those characters. Like the two main characters, they killed them in a very dramatic fashion. I went, wow, hats off to you. I never expected them to be that courageous in a TV series to actually kill some of their main characters. And I thought, wow, nice job. It really deepened the meaning of the TV show for me, and I thought, I'm impressed. And I felt very different about the show all of a sudden. But then, of course, a few minutes later, the video cuts back to the interior of the plane, and then our two main characters kind of wake up. Oh, we survived. And I was just like, oh, come on. Because, obviously, they would not survive. There's no way they could have survived that. And two, the plane itself would have been shredded. The plane would have been shattered into a million pieces. And yet somehow they made it look like the wave hit the plane, filled the inside of the plane with water, and then the flood washed over the plane, went back again, and the plane was still sitting on the runway, completely intact. And all the people in the plane, all they had to do was hold their breath until the water level went down. And it was like the most ridiculous thing I've seen in a very long time. And then I lost all respect for the TV show after that. But anyway, that was something also connected with tsunamis that I watched recently. So because of the Boxing Day anniversary, 20 years later, my pop culture life, my online life has been all about tsunamis and all about reliving the 2004 tsunami, the 2011 tsunami, and the mini tsunami, the storm surge that I lived through in the Philippines. So that's kind of what I've been doing a lot of lately, reliving a lot of that. Back with the third cup of coffee of the morning. You might hear a little bit of the squeaking. That's the ceiling fan. I generally don't have it running if I'm recording in here because it squeaks. But it was getting pretty warm inside the room, so while I was making the cup of coffee, I turned off the GoPro to let it cool down, and then I turned the fan up to level 5. I'd never done that before. There's like a switch on the wall there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was always on number 1, number 2 at the most, and I thought, well, I really want to cool things down in here, so I put it all the way up to number 5. That was pretty crazy. It went so fast. There's a huge fan up there. And I was thinking, man, 5 might be too high. It's going to rip itself right out of the ceiling up there. But it survived, and it was just slowing down now. Finally came to a stop. So, YouTube story. The big one still continues to be Noraly and Itchy Boots. In the last podcast, I talked for a very long time and in great detail about her video about how her motorcycle was stolen in Iraq in the city called Erbil. And then because she had Apple AirTags, 2 of them,
hidden somewhere on her motorbike, she was able to see where the motorcycle was, and she eventually got it back. And I watched the whole video 3 times now, and again, with my brain for details, I really want to know exactly what happened. So I keep careful notes, and I rewatch, and I think about it, and I put all the bits and pieces together. And then the way the whole thing turned out, the motorcycle was parked outside of this quite expensive hotel where she was staying, but in kind of a dark parking area. It looked almost like an alleyway, but she had a cover over the motorcycle. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, 2 men came, and this was all captured on CCTV, and these 2 men either knew the motorcycle was there. Again, we don't know any of those details about how they targeted her in particular. Did they see her arrive? Did they see her park the motorcycle and they thought, let's go there? Or were they just roaming around at night? Because it was 2 of them on a single motorcycle, and they had equipment with them to allow them to tow motorcycles, like they had the straps with them. So that led me to conclude that they do this routinely, that they are basically motorcycle thieves. It's what they do. So maybe they were just driving around at night, and then at 5 o'clock in the morning, they looked in the parking area and, what's under that cover? And then they pulled the cover off, saw that it was a big motorcycle. And I guess they didn't know who it belonged to, I'm assuming. And then they towed it away. They tied a strap around it and then tied it to another strap on their motorcycle. And then they tried to tow it away. And then I guess from 5 a.m. until 6:20 a.m., they were working on the motorcycle, trying to get it started, but they couldn't get it started. And then at 6:20, they just abandoned it at the side of the road. They put it on its kickstand, and then they just got on their motorcycle, and then they rode away. And then when Noraly woke up in the morning, because all this happened before she was even aware of it. She was in this hotel, she went down for breakfast, she had breakfast, and then I guess she went outside to check on her motorcycle or to get it ready, remove the cover and start getting it ready for the day. And she went out into the parking area and it was gone. The cover was on the ground, but the motorcycle wasn't there anymore. And then she ran up to her room, grabbed the key to the motorcycle, and then started tracking it on her smartphone with the AirTags, went down to the front desk of the hotel, told them, my motorcycle's gone, it's been stolen, what can we do? Please call the police. And then in her mind, she knew where the motorcycle was based on the AirTags. It was like right around the corner. And at that time, she thought it was still moving. So there's a real sense of urgency, like, let's go, let's get out there and run after these thieves. But the hotel staff didn't really react. According to the video, they hardly reacted at all and were very casual about it. Oh yeah, let's call the police. And oh yes, I called the police and the police are coming, everything's okay, just relax. And of course, Itchy Boots, Noraly, is like going out of her mind. And she eventually just left. She said, well, I gotta go. So if you guys aren't coming with me, the police aren't here yet, well, I'm gonna go. And then a man came with her. Apparently the man didn't work at the hotel, he was another guest. So Noraly and this man that she didn't know, they went down the street looking for the motorcycle. And after a few adventures, they actually found it sitting there at the side of the road. And she got it back. And yeah, it was weird. The thieves didn't take any of the bags because she left a lot of her bags on the bike with a lot of the stuff still in the bags. They didn't take any of that. Apparently they took her rain jacket, or they threw it away, or they did something. But what they did do was they cut through all the wires. And there's a lot of debate in the video comments about why they did that. Some people think they did it just to be vindictive, that they can't steal the motorcycle, so just to be mean, let's cut the wires and cause trouble for whoever the owner is. Other people were saying, well, you do that, you cut the wires, because sometimes that allows you to start the motorcycle. It short circuits the electrical system, and then if there's any safety features, then that allows them to kickstart the bike and get it running. And other people said they cut the wires in order to disable any security features, like any GPS tracking. They cut the wires to cut the electricity to any kind of tracking system. So nobody knows exactly why they cut the wires. Personally, based on everything I read, I think they cut it because they thought it would help them start the bike. I saw enough comments, people who seem to know about motorcycles, seem to know what they were talking about. They were the most informed people, and they said, yeah, certain types of motorcycles, if you cut the wiring, it allows you to start it up easier, and that's why they did it. So I think that's what they did. But I just wanted to give an update because I've been following the story, and her video now has like 1.3 million views, not surprisingly, and over 12,000 comments, or actually just shy of 12,000 right now, but I'm sure it's going to go above 12,000. And the comments can be a little bit frustrating. They are basically what you would think. Most of the comments are wildly inaccurate, people saying things that are completely untrue, a lot of fear mongering, a lot of pointing fingers at the hotel staff saying, oh, the hotel staff were in on it. And their proof for saying that is that, according to what they think happened, Itchy Boots, well, I should stop calling her that. Her name is Noraly. That's not her name. Noraly told the hotel staff, look, I have tracking on air tags, so I know where the motorcycle is. And then everybody says, well, when you told them that, the hotel staff who are in on it, then they called the thieves and warned them and said, run away. The foreigner is coming. The police are coming. Abandon the motorcycle and run away. But of course, that doesn't make any sense at all, because Noraly wasn't even talking to the hotel staff until 8 o'clock. And the thieves, they abandoned the motorcycle at 6:20. So it was like more than an hour and a half later that Noraly even discovered that her motorcycle was missing. And the thieves had given up and abandoned it an hour and a half earlier. So this whole theory that the staff, once they knew about the air tags, they called the thieves, and then the thieves abandoned the motorcycle and ran away, that's utter nonsense. But so many people in the comments are insisting that that is exactly what happened. But apparently they didn't watch the whole video, or they didn't pay attention. When they just looked at the headline, skimmed a little bit of the video, and then they're putting their opinions online. Of course, a lot of fear-mongering, a little bit of victim blaming. It's like, well, you know, what kind of an idiot goes to Iraq? What do you expect if you go to Iraq, this uncivilized part of the world? Of course, people are going to steal you. You know, you're an idiot for going there. A lot of comments like that. A lot of Islamophobic comments. It's like, of course this happens in an Islamic country, where, you know, there are a lot of references to Baghdad, because Baghdad has a nickname, the city of thieves or something like that, going back into like fairy tales and things like that. Alibaba and Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, stuff like that. So the comments are a little bit depressing. Shows a lot of people don't really have much of a brain and just react emotionally to everything that they see. But anyway, a couple of things have happened since then. One thing, I managed to find an article on an Iraqi website with saying that the police arrested one of the thieves. Not both of them. So like the article is very, very small, very short, doesn't have a lot of details, so it's very frustrating for me. But the article says the police arrested one of the thieves. And a funny thing, though, is this article actually has a photograph, a screenshot of the two thieves and the motorcycle. And underneath the caption, it says, "This is the moment when the thieves stole the motorcycle," which I find interesting because it's completely wrong. So I love to know about a story and then see the media coverage of the story and then see what other people are saying about the story, because it teaches you to think for yourself, because what you read rarely is accurate. You cannot trust what you read. You can't trust what you hear. Everybody gets everything wrong, even an online media source, because it says, "This is the moment when the thieves stole the motorcycle," and it's exactly the opposite. That's the moment the thieves abandoned the motorcycle. And to me, details are really important, because if you look at that picture and you say, and you believe it, this is when the thieves stole the motorcycle, the first thing you think is, well, what idiot leaves their motorcycle way out in the middle of the street? Because it's way out in the open, completely exposed, and it's like almost out in traffic, like it's not even at the curb, and it's a big, fancy, expensive looking motorcycle. So if the owner left it there, then they deserve to have their motorcycle stolen. But of course, the truth is, that's where the thieves brought the motorcycle, and that's where they abandoned it. Noraly, she parked her motorcycle in a secure parking lot underneath a cover. So she did everything right. But if you believe the caption, you get a completely inaccurate, incorrect idea of what happened. And then there's a statement from the police in the article. And from the police, they say, like the representative from the police, they say, two men stole a motorcycle belonging to a Dutch YouTuber. And then they say, we retrieved the motorcycle and returned it to the foreigner. So the police, in their statement, they're claiming credit, that they're the ones who found the motorcycle and returned it to Noraly. And of course, if you watch the video and you see exactly what happened, that Noraly got the motorcycle back herself. She's the one who ran out into the street, tracked it down using the air tags, found the motorcycle. And in fact, the police didn't even show up until she was busy trying to fix it. So Noraly had time to find the motorcycle, to find out it was stolen, talk to the hotel staff, wait for the police to show up, give up on the police, give up on the hotel staff, give up on hotel security, go out by herself, find the motorcycle, go all the way back to the hotel, get her tools, go back to the motorcycle, take off the gas cover, start dismantling the motorcycle to try to fix it. That's when the police finally showed up. So the police didn't even show up until Noraly was busy already trying to fix her own motorcycle. So it's kind of ridiculous that the police claim credit for finding the motorcycle and returning it when they didn't even show up until way after everything was already over. But anyway, the police did find one of the thieves, and they actually posted a video clip to their Facebook page. And I watched the video clip, and the video clip is from a CCTV camera that shows like 30 seconds when the thieves finally gave up. There was like one thief sitting on a motorcycle, and the second one was still looking at Noraly's motorcycle, and they're kind of he's looking at it, turning the handlebars, and the two of them are talking to each other and trying to figure out, like, how can we get this motorcycle started? And then they eventually, I guess the guy on the motorcycle convinced the other guys, like, come on, we're never going to get it started. Let's go, let's get out of here. And then the second guy got on the motorcycle with his partner, and they tried to ride away, but they couldn't even ride away because their motorcycle wouldn't start. It's a piece of crap, and they had to kickstart it. So then the passenger got off, pushed the motorcycle, got it up to speed, and then the guy popped the clutch, and that managed to start the engine. And then the second guy hopped on, and then the two of them rode away. So it was really fun for me to be able to see that video clip. I'd love to see all of it. That would be so fascinating, but that's the only little piece that we get to see. A couple of other things I find interesting in the CCTV footage. One thing, when the second guy abandons the Noraly's motorcycle, you see him go to their motorcycle, and then he's taking a strap and he's wrapping it around the rear rack. So what they did was they had one strap around Noraly's motorcycle, and they had a second one on their motorcycle, and then they tried to pull it and then jumpstart Noraly's motorcycle. But Noraly, as she talked about, she saw in the CCTV footage that this wouldn't work, and then when they tried to jumpstart it, both motorcycles came to a stop, and then they both fell over, which damaged a few things on Noraly's motorcycle. So it was a little bit of the Keystone Cops, Three Stooges kind of atmosphere about this. But that made me think about how this guy was wrapping up the one strap, but they forgot about the second one, the one that they wrapped around Noraly's motorcycle. They just left it there, which I find really kind of puzzling. Because it costs money. They're not cheap. It was a heavy-duty tow strap, and then that was what they used to steal motorcycles. It was part of the tools of their trade. So it seems weird to me. And when I listened to Noraly talk about it, and I saw her video, I was assuming that these guys were interrupted, that they were busy trying to steal the motorcycle, and then somebody went, hey, what are you guys doing? What do you stop, you thieves? And then they panicked and then ran away. But that didn't happen at all. They just left on their own, casually, so they just completely forgot about the second strap. And in the video clip, the CCTV video clip, you can see other people. There was actually an Iraqi man standing on the street just watching them, right? Just watching them try to steal this motorcycle. And he didn't do anything. He didn't interfere or get involved. And that interests me as well, because it gets back to what I was saying about how most things in life, what we imagine, is different from the reality. Because when I think about, say, in London or New York or Toronto, Taipei, any big city, when I imagine a bicycle thief or a motorcycle thief, I sort of think about them doing everything in secret, trying to hide what they're doing and trying to do it really, really fast, like a master thief. And they're like, because you imagine that if a thief is trying to steal a bicycle, cut through a lock or something, all the bystanders, all the pedestrians, they'll all intervene. Like, hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, that's not your... But when you watch actual video of bike thieves in London, for example, I've seen a bunch of these videos, nobody does a thing. Everybody just watches them. So the thieves are so brazen because they know nobody's going to stop them. Nobody's going to intervene. So they see a beautiful bicycle with a kryptonite lock on it. They get out their grinder. They got the knapsack full of their tools. They get out the grinder and they're like zzz, cutting through the lock. Everybody's watching them do it. And then once they cut through the lock, they get on the bicycle and they ride away. Nobody stops them. Nobody yells at them. Nobody interferes. And that's how it is, I guess, in real life. I've never witnessed a crime. I'd like to think that I would interfere. I mean, interfering is probably a mistake because, it risks your life. Who knows? The thief could have a weapon. The grinder is a weapon, so you're going to try and stop this guy, and then he's going to go at you with the grinder. And there are cases, particularly in the United States, if you listen to lawyers talk about this, they tell you, don't get involved.
because if you do get involved, now you're legally liable. The thief can sue you, like you can get in trouble because you've intervened. And say if you tackle the thief, try to restrain him, try to call the police, you can be injured, plus now you can be arrested, you can be sued. So like there's like what's in it for you? And then if you think about the victim of the theft, who knows? Maybe they have insurance. Whoever owns that bicycle, their bicycle is stolen, they'll report the theft, they'll be reimbursed, they buy a brand new motorcycle. So like you do have this sense of justice, right? You really want to stop the thieves. Personally, I hate thieves. I despise any type of thief. I really do. So I like to think I would stop a thief if I saw them. But in reality, when you watch all these videos, it's very rare that anybody intervenes. So here in Iraq, with Noraly's motorcycle, you've got these two thieves busy working on the motorcycle, trying to get it started. Clearly, they're trying to steal it. It doesn't belong to them. And you have Iraqi, there's two men in particular, one standing there just watching. I don't know who he is, but he didn't do anything. He didn't yell at them, he didn't shout at them, he didn't try to stop them. And there was another man parking a car. He got out of his car and walked away. And that's the other side of it, that you think if somebody is stealing something, everybody's going to see it. But 90% of the people aren't even going to notice. They're just walking down the street, they're parking their car, and somebody can be trying to steal a motorcycle in broad daylight. Everybody's going to just walk by them. Most of them won't even know that they're trying to steal the motorcycle. So I find that CCTV footage interesting from that perspective as well. And the frustrating thing about the news article and the video, of course, is that there's so little information. And that drives me crazy with all big stories, because they arrested one of the thieves. That's all we know. And at the end of the video, they show the thief from behind with handcuffs on, but they never show his face. And I looked at the police website in general, and all of their videos, all of their photographs only show the thieves from behind. And again, that always does strike. I mean, it makes sense. It's logical, I guess. From a legal point of view, these guys are accused of a crime, but they're not convicted yet. So it's not fair to them to show their faces, right? But it always does seem weird when you see it in the news, where you see the victim of the crime, you see their face, you know their name, you know everything about them, but the criminal who attacked them or robbed them or did something to them, their rights are protected. You don't learn their name, you don't see their face, they're always hidden. And again, legally, you have to do that because they're not convicted yet. Once they're convicted or charged, then they can release their name and stuff like that. But it does feel really weird, and you're like, oh, come on, I want to see what this guy looks like. But also in the article, they don't talk, like, how did the police find him? How did the police investigate? That's what I really want to know, because in the CCTV footage, it's probably pretty clear these thieves are not exactly masterminds. They had one of them, the guy that they arrested, had his face completely uncovered. So if you knew who he was, you would probably recognize him. But how would the police know? Like, do the police already know about this guy? And the police looked at the footage and went, oh, I know him, let's go arrest him. And then they go arrest him. Like, but I want to know that whole story. I want to know everything that happened. And then if they arrested one of the guys, what about the other guy? How come he's not under arrest yet?
Why did they only get one of them and not the other one? And of course, I want to know who they are. Are they Iraqis? Are they Syrian refugees, which everybody is theorizing they might be refugees from Syria? Who are they? But you'll never know. We'll probably never find out anything more than that. And the article says that the Dutch tourist, the Dutch YouTuber, Noraly, did not, it says in the article, did not sue them, which may be just a language problem. They probably meant that she did not press charges. But I'd like to know the details about that as well. Like, when did that happen? Because I'm pretty sure that Noraly, she left right away. Her motorcycle was stolen in the morning, and I think she spent that day fixing it, and I'm pretty sure the very next morning she just got on her motorcycle and rode to Baghdad. So she wouldn't even been there anymore when the thieves were arrested. So did they give her the opportunity to press charges? Did they have her phone number, email address? Did they contact her? What does Itchy Boots, what does Noraly know about this situation? There's no information about that either. So yeah, these sorts of stories, they do to kind of drive me crazy, because you learn so little about what actually happened. But yeah, that is the update on the Itchy Boots stolen motorcycle video. A couple of other YouTubers I wanted to talk about. One of them is the UK Moto vlogger. I seem to be following all Moto vloggers these days, except this guy. I forget his name now. But anyway, his YouTube channel is called We Hate the Cold. And he was riding a scooter through Thailand and Laos and Cambodia, I think. But then he switched to a bicycle in Vietnam, and he posted one video from Vietnam so far, and that video was called Cycling Bangkok to Hanoi on Decathlon's second worst bike. 60 days, 3,600 kilometers. So I guess he started in Bangkok. He went to a sporting goods store. It was a big chain, popular in this part of the world, called Decathlon. They're well known for making like low budget gear, very like cheap stuff. So he went to Decathlon, bought his bicycle, and then he rode for 2 months and covered 3,600 kilometers, I assume from Bangkok to Ho Chi Minh City, and then from Ho Chi Minh City up to Hanoi. And in this video, I watched the whole video from end to end twice, and I found it interesting, mainly because of, just the story. He's cycling, and I was not, when he mentioned in the video title, he bought the second cheapest one or second worst one at Decathlon. And of course, being a bit of a cyclist myself, I was like, okay, that's trouble. You need a touring bike. A regular city bike is not going to do it. Basically, you're going to get flat tires, you're going to get bent rims, and you're going to get broken spokes, and the chain is going to break, the gearing system, everything is going to break on that bike. And that's essentially what he experienced. It sounds like as a cycling journey, it was miserable for him, because even between Bangkok and Saigon, he had 4 broken spokes, maybe 8 broken spokes. But anyway, all through the video, all he seemed to be doing was going to bike shops. Every day he'd have to go to another bicycle repair shop, and they'd have to repair his wheel, straighten the rim, replace all the broken spokes. It just broke spoke after spoke after spoke after spoke. And if you've done a bit of bike touring, that's perfectly logical. You take a regular bike, put a bunch of bags on it, tools, spare parts, food, water, clothing, laptops. It's a lot of weight to put on the rear wheel of a bike, and the spokes are just going to snap like spaghetti strands. So you need a stronger bike, or you need to be an extremely light packer. But if you're a YouTuber, of course, you're carrying heavy stuff. Laptops and things add a lot of weight very quickly. So anyway, his cycling experience seemed to be fairly negative, and it struck me as very similar to Paddy Doyle's experience. I talked about Paddy Doyle when he set off to ride a bicycle from the far north of Thailand all the way down to the south of Thailand, and he eventually just gave up, and he found it very unpleasant. And I think part of the problem, as I talked about, is that he just tried to do too much. If you're cycling, you have to understand the time limitations and the physical limitations. Plus, for me in particular, I guess I'm very, very lazy when it comes to stuff like that. I mean, I know of cyclists who will ride 200 kilometers a day, but these are hardcore cyclists who build up to that fitness level, and they're interested in cycling itself. And of course, they design things to have a very lightweight bike and lots of very little gear. And they're often, they're not camping out, so they don't have any camping equipment. They're credit card cyclists, which is a really nice way to travel. You just have a bicycle with next to nothing on it, a change of underwear and a second t-shirt, a flat tire repair kit. That's all you need, and your credit card, and then you just stay in hotels night after night. So then you can ride 200 kilometers in a day if you're going hard and you're in shape. But if you're a YouTuber bike touring, your bike is heavier, and you're starting from nothing, like you're not cycling, you're not in good shape, and then you try to ride 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers your first day, you're basically going to give up because it's brutal. In my experience, the very first day, all I want to do is like 1 kilometer maximum. It's all I can do to pack up the bike, ride across town, and check into a different hotel. And it's like, okay, that's it for today. Just having the experience of getting on the bike, packing it, riding, unpacking, that's enough for day one. And then day 2, you ride 5 kilometers. Day 3, you ride 8 kilometers. And just enjoy the day. Like, you don't focus on covering 150 kilometers right out of the gate. I mean, I never ride that far. I mean, a big, big day for me would be 100 kilometers. That would be an accomplishment. But Paddy Doyle, he tried to ride, I think, 100 and some odd kilometers his very first day, and his second day, and his third day. And then this guy, We Hate the Cold, it sounds like he did the exact same thing. He just hopped on the bike and just started to ride. And so, of course, he was miserable. And you're going to be miserable. Bike touring contains a lot of misery. It's a physical, painful thing to do. It has a lot of benefits, but you gotta balance all of this. So anyway, it sounds like he had a pretty rough time riding his bike. And the video itself was his usual style of narration. So he had a lot of video clips, but then rather than telling the story in real time, he was telling the story afterwards in voiceover and then illustrating the story with video clips. And one big thing about that video was he lost all of his video footage from the first 10 or 15 days when he was riding from Bangkok heading to Ho Chi Minh City. As he talked about, he had all kinds of adventures. He was camping out every night, met all kinds of interesting people, had all these great conversations, recorded all of this on video. I think he still has just a one of those Sony X3000 videos, cameras, you know, and that's all he was using. And it seems to be in pretty bad shape. It's an old one, really broken down. I don't think he really takes care of it very much. And he probably shoots with a smartphone a little bit. But anyway, he had all this video footage on his camera, and then the video card corrupted, and he lost all of it. So all of that video was gone. And of course, I instantly wanted to send him an email, which I talked myself out of it. But of course, when something goes wrong in another YouTuber's life and you do things differently, you want to help them. There's like Itchy Boots had her motorcycle stolen. So there's like
12,000 people leave comments telling her about everything she should have done. You should get this kind of lock, and you should put this lock, and you put this system, and you got to do this. And everybody's trying to help her, give her suggestions about what she should do. But it's always a little bit of misguided help, because usually the person already knows. They're not idiots. They know these things. And whatever you tell them they should have done, they know they should have done it. They just didn't bother doing it. So like in my case, being detail-oriented, perhaps overly detail-oriented, I have a system where no matter what I'm doing, what kind of video I'm shooting, at the end of the day, as soon as I come back to my room or wherever it is, whatever it is I'm doing, the first thing I do, take the GoPros, all of my GoPros, and take the memory cards out, and I copy all the video from the memory card onto an external drive. So I've got 2 copies now, and then I take all the video from that drive, copy it to a second drive. So I don't do anything else. That's the first thing I do. Second thing I do is charge up all the batteries. Like maybe I'll plug in all the batteries first, get them charging, and then I copy all of the memory cards. So then I have 3 copies. I have the copy on the memory card and 2 copies on 2 separate hard drives. And that has saved me a number of times, because you accidentally delete files, memory cards get corrupted, audio gets lost, and then I always have backup copies. And what I discovered recently is that if you use like an SSD drive, an external SSD drive, it's just amazing. So fast, so lightweight, so convenient. So if I was going to write to We Hate the Cold, I would tell him, what you got to do to avoid this in the future, buy an SSD drive, like a 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte if you can afford it, get a 2 terabyte SSD drive, and then you can copy from your memory card directly into the SSD drive, and you can plug the SSD drive into your phone, copy everything from your phone, and just do that as a habit. Like every day, at the end of the day, first thing, charge the batteries. Second thing, copy all the video files, all the pictures, label the folders, and get at least two backup copies of everything. And that's standard for me. That's what I do all the time. So I was going to write to him and tell him about this, but then I thought, nah, what is the point? He knows. It's not, he's not an idiot. He knows he should make a backup copy to avoid this happening. And same thing with the bike. I was going to tell him about how a decathlon city bike, it isn't strong enough to go bike touring. But if he didn't know that before, he knows it now. And he's never going to do it again. I think he had such a negative experience on the bicycle. He's never going to ride a bicycle ever again. He's going to go back to riding scooters and motorcycles. So giving him all this information about the type of bicycle he should get, what he should look for. If your city bike has 30 spokes and a thin rim, it's just going to collapse. What you need is a touring rim from this company, and it has to have at least 36 spokes, and you got to do this, and you got to have this kind of gearing ratio. I can tell him all these things in an email, but he's just going to look at it and go, yeah, whatever. I know all that anyway. I just didn't want to spend the money. I wanted to buy a cheap bike, and I'm never going to ride a bike again anyway. So thanks for all the advice, but yeah, it's of no use to me. So anyway, I did not leave any comments. But the interesting thing is, even if I had left a long comment on his video, it would have disappeared because the video was blocked by YouTube. And I did manage to see it a third time, and I got a big warning message from YouTube that says this video contains sensitive topics related to self-harm. And I don't even want to say the actual words because that would get me in trouble with YouTube. Their computers are so sensitive, but they call it self-harm. And basically they restricted the video
and you have to confirm that you are over 18 years old and that you understand that this video contains this sort of subject matter, and then you can watch it. And the video isn't even listed on his channel, it's unlisted, so it's like the video doesn't even exist. And then I guess the We Hate the Cold guy, he basically deleted the video, and then he's going to try and fix it and re-upload it or do something. But when he talked about it, he announced it on his community page saying, YouTube blocked this video for this reason. He was sort of mystified, and he was joking that, well, I guess YouTube thinks riding a bicycle from Bangkok to Ho Chi Minh City, that falls under this subject matter of self-harm, that riding a bike is such a crazy thing to do that YouTube thinks it should be banned and blocked. But I noticed when I watched his video, he talked a lot about, he was in Ho Chi Minh City and is going to the history museums, things like the War Remnants Museum, places like that. So he was talking about the Vietnam War, and there were those very famous protests from the monks, right? And the monks set themselves on fire as a protest. And he talked about that, and I think he used specific language to talk about it, and he showed a little bit of stock footage of that event. And I think that's what YouTube picked up on. It wasn't riding a bike, it wasn't anything he said, it was the fact that he talked about that protest from the Vietnam War, and that's why YouTube banned it and blocked the video. So I wrote that in a comment saying, I think that's why they did it. And then he replied to my comment. It was like, oh, it never occurred to him. So I told him something that he wasn't aware of. It hadn't occurred to him. So anyway, I guess now he's busy re-editing the video, and then he's going to upload it again, removing that section. One more YouTuber I wanted to talk about, and this is Eric from the YouTube channel Moto. He's a Canadian from the Vancouver area, and he recently set off to ride a motorcycle around the world. That's what, well, basically from Vancouver to New Zealand, going through much of the world, but basically North America, Europe, and Asia. So on this journey, he's not going to Africa or to South America. So he's not really going everywhere in the world, but he's circumnavigating the world. He's calling it a spiral, the big spiral, because he's sort of going like this. But anyway, I've been following his channel, and he recently posted a whole bunch of videos. One was called My First Ride in Sand Did Not Go Well. The next one, This Mountain Was Too Much for My Motorcycle. Another one, I Need to Fix This Before I Continue to Alaska. Another one, Exploring the Creepy Towns of the Alaska Highway. Then the last one, Will the Americans Let Me Into Alaska? So some interesting things going on in his videos. They're good. I love his videos. I like him as a person. He's very self-effacing. He's very humble. He tells a simple story, but he shows really beautiful cinematography in his drone. I love his music choices. I just like everything about it. He shows a lot of the beautiful things in his journey, but he also focuses on a lot of the technical stuff, behind the scenes problems and things that Noraly on Itchy Boots generally ignores. So I enjoy his videos more than I do the Itchy Boots YouTube channel. And a few interesting things happened. Like what, for example? Yeah, he has a lot of trouble with his motorbike going up steep rocky roads, and it keeps falling over, and kind of gives me a feeling of like Itchy Boots channel with her kind of falling over in the mud in Africa all the time. And there was one time when he stayed in this lodge, and
he shows up at this lodge, but he booked everything online, but when he got there, he didn't have the code, because there was no, like the modern world these days, like Airbnb sort of things, even hotels now don't have staff anymore, and it's all run by computers. So even he ran into that problem in Canada. He had this room at this lodge, and then the door was locked, and there's a keypad, but he doesn't have the code. And they had to spend, I think, like an hour and a half or 2 hours on the phone, sending emails, calling people, waiting for phone calls, waiting for emails. Even other guests at the lodge would come in, and they would call the company on his behalf and tell them, yeah, there's this guy here, but he's locked out and can't get into his room, and the code, and this went on and on and on. I just found it interesting that he faced that in Canada, and it's the way of the modern world. But an interesting thing for me was that when he showed all of this, like all the trouble he had, emailing the people, talking to the people. And in the video at a couple of points, he actually aimed his camera at his phone, and you could see all of the details on his phone, like all of these phone calls that he made, or all of these emails that he was getting, which was kind of interesting that he would be that open. And as someone pointed out, because everybody's curious about the timing of these things, because it's December now, and Alaska is going to be covered in snow. So, but yet he's riding on sunny days. So it's like, how old are these videos? And on his phone, you can actually see that it is August 1st. So in fact, he posted the video at the end of December, and yet you could see on his phone, it was actually August 1st that day. So it's August, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So it took him 5 months to edit and post this video, which, two things are weird about that. One is, man, that is a long delay. After 5 months, like, where is he now? He could be in New Zealand already for all I know. His journey could be over. But it's also kind of interesting that he showed his emails on his phone, which I think most YouTubers, I mean, I'm not very private. I talk about my life in depth. I'm not that worried about it. I talk about what hotel I'm staying in, the room number of my hotel. Anybody wants to knock on my door and say hello, drop by, I don't mind. But then you get people like Noraly, of course. She's incredibly private, keeps everything personal out of her videos. And of course, for security reasons, it's probably wise for her to do that. And then on the other, but even me, I'm not as open as Eric, where he's actually showing everything on his phone, which is kind of funny. And you learn a lot about him. He's so forthcoming. And it turns out that one of the emails was from his ex-girlfriend, and apparently his ex-girlfriend is also a YouTuber, and they broke up recently. And then people are very aware of this breakup, because it was like everybody knew them. I guess they were both part of the van life culture. Maybe they were living together in a van, I don't know. And then they broke up and went off on separate vans. I don't know the history. But in this video, he was watching a video posted by his ex-girlfriend, the other YouTuber, and then you could see emails or phone calls relating to his ex-girlfriend, this other YouTuber, and you could actually see that on his phone in his video, which was kind of interesting. And it turns out that he has dual citizenship, and I found it interesting because he has a Dutch passport as well as a Canadian passport. And I wondered whether that explained why I feel like I relate to him so much, because I also have Dutch heritage. My ancestors I was born in Canada, of course. I don't have anything to do with the Netherlands, but it is my heritage. I have a Dutch heritage. And then he also, he even has a Dutch passport, 2 different passports. So maybe that's why I feel a kinship with him. And then his last video I thought was kind of interesting, and I think this will be the last thing I'll talk about this morning on the Planet Doug podcast, is he's also very, as I said, he's very forthcoming, very sincere, very honest, and very humble kind of person. And as he was riding his motorcycle to the Alaskan border, he knew he had to cross through the immigration and customs to get into the United States. And in the video, he made a big deal about it. And I understand what he was doing because I do it as well. I joke about it. Like if I go through the airport in Kuala Lumpur, I'll say, I'm a little bit nervous. Got to go through immigration, got to go through customs. And it's just natural that anytime you're dealing with authorities, men with guns, women with guns, people who have authority to say, no, you can't, or they have the authority to stop you and search your bags. Your heart rate goes up a little bit, you're a little bit stressed out, you're a little bit tense. It makes sense. You're dealing with authority. So I'll say that from time to time. It's like, ooh. And then I get it through immigration and I'll say something like, yes, I can relax. I got through immigration. I didn't get arrested. I didn't get deported. I didn't get thrown out of the country. And then he was doing the same thing. But in his video, he did it so much more than I would. So he brought it up over and over and over and over and over. He brought it up so many times that people started to notice it and started to leave comments. And there was a lot of pushback. I wouldn't call them negative comments really, but there were a lot of comments from that point of view, like people who are maybe experienced world travelers, and they're sort of teasing him a little bit and making fun of him because he's a Canadian entering the United States, which is, for a Canadian, that's like the easiest border crossing in the world. Like, people were saying, listen, buddy, if you are nervous entering the U.S., what are you doing going around the world? Don't just wait till you get to the Middle East. Wait till you get to this country. Wait till you get to that. Wait till you get to Pakistan. Wait till you get to India. It's like, man, you better toughen up because you're not ready. You think you're going to be riding around the world. You're not even going to make it, buddy. If you're this scared of entering the United States, you're in trouble. You get a lot of comments like that. And he even had a special card. Like if you're a Canadian going, I don't know anything about this. This is all new to me. But he said in the video, he gave the immigration officer his Nexus card. And I guess this is a special card. Canadians and maybe Americans both can get it. I don't know. Maybe it's only for Canadians, where if you're crossing the border a lot, you use this special card to get special treatment. You sign up and you get fingerprinted and face scanned and security. And once you have your Nexus card, you can just cross the border effortlessly. And people were saying, it's like, dude, crossing into the US and you have a Nexus card and you're this scared, you're not going to make it, buddy. You better toughen up because, man, you're not, wait until you get out of North America. Oh. So anyway, a lot of people were acting tough, like, if this makes you nervous, you're not ready for the rest of the world, sort of stuff. And he had a lot of comments like that. And it made me think about him as a YouTuber reading all the comments. And I'm wondering whether it affects him or not, where in the future, maybe he's going to become less honest about his feelings and that he's going to start hiding some of that stuff because of all the feedback and criticism he might get in the comments. Anyway, as always, I had no intention of talking this long. I was going to make this very short and very quick YouTube update about itchy boots. That was the main thing I wanted to talk about, but I guess I I rambled on quite a bit longer than I thought I would. And now it is time to shut down for this morning. And as always, thank you for hanging out with me, listening to my stories. I hope I kept you company a little bit while you were listening to me. And thank you, as always, for keeping me company as I tell my stories. I really enjoy doing this. So that's it. Shutting down for now on Saturday, December 28th, the end of the Planet Doug podcast. I hope you come back for the next one. And if you do come back, I'll talk to you then.